Welcome back to Bourbon Ron-Dezvous. I'm Ron, and this is our place on YouTube to meet and talk about and drink bourbon. In this episode, we're going to settle this once and for all. Early Times, Bottle and Bond versus Early Times, Bottle and Bond. Let's give it a pour. So there's been a huge debate going on about Early Times, Bottle and Bond, and is it now what it used to be? The question is, which is which? Let's take a look here. I'm going to put these in the right order here. On this side is going to be Brown-Forman release of Early Times, Bottle and Bond. How can you tell? Because they look identical for the most part, right? Well, you're going to have a black screw top on the Brown-Forman, and on the Sazerac, okay, I'm just going to start that over. So in this episode, we are actually going to put to rest this for a final time. There have been a lot of people out there talking about, well, it's not the same juice. It is the same juice. We know that Brown-Forman sold Early Times, Bottle and Bond to Sazerac Corporation, and Sazerac is now bottling their own version of the Early Times. Now, the question is it the same juice? So we're going to get into this. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to tell the difference between the two bottles. And then we're going to sip it, and then I'm going to give you some thoughts on what I think is actually going on here. So, without further ado, Early Times Brown-Forman edition. This bottle right here is going to have a black screw top cap. In addition, when you look at the back, there's not actually a mention of a company name on it because it's Early Times. And it actually says earlytimes.com, responsibility.org, bottled by Early Times Distillery Company, Louisville, Kentucky. That's going to be the Brown-Forman version of Early Times. The Sazerac version of that is going to be a blue screw top cap, and then it's going to say in very small letters, it's going to say, let's see here, we love to hear from you, our customers, www.sazerac.com. That's a dead giveaway that it is Sazerac Corporation. Let me just show you real quick too, because this is kind of funny, that the two look really the same, but when you look at these two bottles, you can actually tell that there is a size difference. Maybe size matters, maybe it doesn't. I don't know, we're here to find out.
Does size count at all, or is that just some weird thing guys think about?
All right, you see, this is where Gene and I always get into a heated debate. I like them when they're really big.
And I think it's better when they're enormous.
So, let's give these open here. All right, and of course, the black screw top versus the blue screw top, Sazerac, Brown-Forman. Now I wanted to make sure that I actually opened these fresh cracked for both of them so that neither one had an advantage of airing out or aging or anything that they're going to be as close to the same as you can get. So let's take a look at the color. The color on these is, for all intents and purposes, identical.
Remember when I told you we're not so different, you and I? We're not so different, you and I. See, I did say that. Very clever.
on the nose, you're getting some of that.
You may go now. But you may go. Well, tell me, why are you staring at my nose?
Oh, I was not staring.
Does it astonish you?
I'm getting a lot of ethanol on this. Let's realize that that's probably neck pour. Let's nose this and find out. I'm getting, first thing, I'm getting a little bit of ethanol, I ain't gonna lie. But when you really get in there and blow that off, I'm getting a citrus hint to it, and maybe like caramel and citrus. I'm gonna nose the other one. Swirl that up. I can't tell the difference between the two on the nose. It's almost like orange. A little bit of orange, a citrusy smell. It's got to be like orange, vanilla, caramel. There's a little bit of hint of, I don't know, oak. You'd expect that, I'm sure. They honestly virtually smell the same. So after nosing these, we're gonna give these a taste. I wanted to stop, let that sit for a couple of minutes, and also grab some water so that I can rinse in between. Brown-Forman. That's very tasty. I am getting that caramel forward, vanilla. As it goes on, you're getting a little bit of, it's kind of funny because it didn't have the heat at the beginning, but at the end I'm getting, I don't know, almost like pepper, or I don't even know, like probably I'd classify that as pepper. It's not really heat, but more like pepper. Let's take some water and move on to, this will be the Sazerac version of Early Times. The initial palate is identical. The pepper on the end is not on the Early Times Sazerac version. It could just be simply because this was my first drink of the evening, and so let me try it again and just, I want to be certain. Absolutely, getting that vanilla, that caramel, and at the end, that little pepper pop. So, I would have to say that these two are nearly indistinguishable between the Sazerac version and the Brown-Forman. Here's why I think that is. And maybe this is being what's playing into my brain. My brain knows that Brown-Forman, Sazerac bought Brown-Forman's version of Early Times, I don't know, a little over a year ago. This is a bottle and bond. Therefore, we know that it was aged in a government-insured rickhouse. We also know that it's 4 years old. 1 year ago purchase does not equal a 4-year bourbon. In addition, Sazerac would not know the mash bill for what Brown-Forman was doing with their Early Times. So I think that what we're getting here is that we have a rebottling of the Brown-Forman product, which when Sazerac purchased the Early Times name, they also purchased a backlog of barrels that were aging. So I'm sure that there was that, and then there was a move over to their bottle and bond facilities where that would be in a government, regulated rickhouse. And so I think that these two juices, these two bourbons are identical. with the exception of Sazerac actually bottled it. And any differences in taste may be in the bottling mechanism rather than in the actual bourbon mash, bourbon aging, and maybe slightly, well actually not even slightly in the rickhouse. I was going to say slightly in the rickhouse, but it hasn't aged in their rickhouse long enough for it to make a huge difference. You're only talking about a year ago, so if they moved all those barrels from Brown-Forman over to Sazerac, sat in the rickhouse for a year, and then they said, okay, here we go, let's bottle it. It would be the bottling process that would probably have the most impact on the flavor. And honestly, my nose couldn't tell the difference between the two. And my palate wanted to say, hey, this one is not quite as strong as this one. If I were tasting it blind, maybe I'd have said, hey, 90 proof versus 100 proof. But the flavor was identical. So I really believe that we're looking at the Brown-Forman versus the Sazerac, and people are saying, oh, we got to find the Brown-Forman. This is going to make this bottle really, really hard to find. It's going to make this bottle really, really popular. And it's going to be like hunting one of the allocated bottles.
Be very, very quiet. I'm hunting rabbits.
Which is kind of funny for a less than $20 bottle. But honestly, if we're being honest with ourselves, the logic doesn't make sense that Sazerac has aged something for 4 years that they just bought a year ago, number one. And number two, if you blinded them together, you'd probably pick them out pretty similarly as far as that goes. I don't know if the bottling process takes a little bit something off of the proof on this as far as the taste of that, the way the proof comes across. I don't know what the bottling process is for the two bottles. But I do know that these are virtually identical, and I think we can put this to rest just with the logic and now with the palate test that the Brown-Forman and the Sazerac are virtually identical, if not identical. So, have you had the Brown-Forman and the Sazerac? And if you have compared those two, what were your findings? Put those in the comments below, because I would love to hear it. My brain won't allow me to accept the fact that this could possibly be a different juice just simply because of the logic that I just laid out, with it being a 4-year bottled in bond that's even more regulated than just 4 years of aging. So let me know if you've had this one, tried the two together. How did the taste come out? How did they compare to you? My findings, I'm gonna say virtually identical. I just cannot split hairs with the little bit of taste difference that might be there, and that's what I think it's the bottling process, if anything. So that's gonna do it for us on Bourbon Rendezvous on this episode. Just remember, it's not always about the whiskey in the glass, it's about who you're sharing it with. Cheers.
My name's Mike the Cat, and I approve this message.